a 12-year-old girl, Courtney Wright. She was removed from her class, Douglas, separated from other students and then sent home. Her father was called to come and collect her. Why? Well, she had the audacity to wear a Union Jack dress on a day where students were encouraged to wear traditional cultural dress to celebrate the rich diversity of our community. Apparently that's highly offensive to be wearing a dress featuring the Union Jack. This is a straight-A student. She's not a troublemaker, but she was told by teachers at Bilton School in Rugby that her outfit was unacceptable. She was removed from class. And Douglas, I don't know, perhaps if she arrived in a burqa, they'd be quite happy with that.
Well, it's a tricky one, isn't it, Rita? Because, I mean, this is such a delicate era that you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I'm sure that if she'd have turned up in cultural clothing of another culture that somehow, because of today's version of reality, you weren't allowed to do, she could have been sent home for doing that. She could have dressed up as a Native American and been sent home for that.
Yes.
She could have been... I mean, it's very hard to know what you're allowed to do in these days. If you're allowed to dress up in something representing your own culture, you can be sent home. But if you dress up as something representing another culture and it doesn't quite fit that day, you can also be sent home. So it's quite hard. It's not surprising that a child might tread on the wrong tracks on this, because after all, you know, who knows what the rules are meant to be these days, other than, as this case shows once again, you're allowed to celebrate every culture other than your own if you're in the West. If you're in the West, you're not allowed to ever celebrate your own culture, but you can only celebrate the wonderful cultural diversity which everyone else brings.
Now to the US, and you've written for the New York Post about Zoran Mandani's delusions of grandeur. This is a man, Douglas, who is the front runner, as we know, to be the next mayor of New York City. You think that would be a big enough role, but his ambitions, his focus appears to be on international issues. He says he's all about New Yorkers, but he can't help weigh in on foreign policy.
Yes, that's right. Zoran Mandani has announced that he would have Benjamin Netanyahu arrested, the Israeli Prime Minister arrested, if he were to set foot in New York. Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, was in New York last year for the United Nations. Most countries in the world, in fact, almost all countries, send representatives to the United Nations. It's one of the things about the UN being in New York. Lots of world leaders come here. But Mandani decided to single out the Prime Minister of the Jewish state, but he's also in the past described the Prime Minister of the world's biggest Hindu state as also being a war criminal. And you know, this is very interesting to me, because why would somebody frankly, let's be honest about it, he's of a Muslim background, and he seems to be just reiterating certain Muslim political talking points. He is, it's to attack a Hindu leader, it's to attack the leader of the one Jewish state. And I mean, this is just something we have seen a lot in Europe in recent years. And it's very striking seeing this kind of Islamic politics come to New York, because you know, last year at the United Nations, the so-called president of the Revolutionary Islamic Republic of Iran spoke on the stage of the United Nations. We have not yet heard Mamdani say that if a representative of the revolutionary government of Iran sets foot in New York, that they will be arrested. Why? Why is it only the prime ministers of India and Israel who must be arrested in New York? Why, when President Erdogan of Turkey comes to the United Nations each year, I'm sorry, but the president of Turkey is currently occupying the north of Cyprus, which is an EU member state. Recep Tayyip Erdogan is an occupier. He's literally occupying at the moment. He's been repressing and attacking the stateless Kurdish people for decades. Why is Mamdani not calling for the detention and arrest of President Erdogan? I'm afraid this is Islamist politicking on the international stage being brought to the domestic stage in New York, and I think it has no place in a mayoral race. But it's very telling that this sort of politics has now even entered New York mayoral politics.
It's going to be a fascinating race. The polls have him in front at the moment, but there's a long way to go. Now, let's go back to the UK. There were some heartwarming scenes at Wimbledon with Princess Catherine receiving a standing ovation. It was rather emotional. And Douglas, there's certainly a great deal of love and goodwill for her from the British public. She's in so many ways the polar opposite of the most attention-seeking royals at the moment, Harry and Meghan.
Well, she is, and I mean, it's sort of inevitable always that people will hold these up as, rivals or competitors or something like this. But really, I mean, the story with Princess Catherine is simply that, she has just not put a foot wrong since she first entered public life many years ago now. And that just stands in stark contrast, not just to Meghan, but to Harry, who was brought up to know what the rules were of public service and of, never complain, never explain. He was brought up in all of that. He, like his wife, has just completely flouted all of that. And Princess Catherine, who was not brought up in that, has adopted it and has been rewarded in the way that people are when they do that. When members of the royal family show duty to the country and a duty to the public returns the warmth in kind. It's why Princess Anne, who's a less glamorous figure perhaps than the now Princess of Wales, has huge public admiration because she's seen to be giving her time, her life to the country and to all of the causes and charities and good causes within it. In the end, that's how people get public admiration within the royal family. It is by showing a sense of duty. It is not by setting up in California at a multi-squillion dollar mansion and making jam that you then flog. Who knew?
Well, yes, it is. You think it's all about style, but really, to earn the love of the British public, you have to have some substance about you as well, and Princess Catherine certainly has that. The Queen always understood her role. She remained, Douglas, apolitical, but King Charles seems to struggle with that a little bit. He's now officially in charge of saving the planet. His role has been redefined to include leading on environmental sustainability. Do we really need or want a climate king, Douglas?
No, I mean, this really has to be. I hope that the King's advisors keep this stuff away from him. As Prince of Wales, there was an argument for him to have personal causes of his own, personal campaigns of his own. On a number of those, the then Prince of Wales was seen to be actually ahead of his time, quite often faced ridicule on things like organic farming and so on, but was often actually ahead of his time and deserves some credit for that. And that's something you can do as Prince of Wales. But once he's king, I'm afraid that all of that stuff is a luxury that he just can't afford. None of the things that could be the day-to-day stuff of politics and politicking can be in his realm. His realm is to be king and to be above politics and to be above all of this sort of thing. And that just has a very, very special role in a constitutional monarchy, because otherwise, basically you're stuck in the sort of day-to-day Ed Milibandness of everything, for instance. You're sort of stuck in being climate secretary and talking about emissions and so on. That's not what the monarchy is there for. The light that the monarchy can shed on a constitutional system is the light of something that is above politics and above the fray and that unites people. And as you say, Rita, the late Queen was an absolute master of that. Nobody ever knew where she stood on anything other than her service to the country and her love for the country and the Commonwealth. Other than that, it was an absolutely closed box. And I think that was the ideal. That is the ideal. And it's one that Prince Charles, now King Charles, was brought up with. And I hope his advisors advise him to try to stick to that and his mother's example.
I do hope so. I don't want to see the king defending those hideous solar farms that are destroying the British countryside or having meetings with Greta
Windmills.
Thunberg or the...
The windmills, which have completely polluted the land, some of the most beautiful bits of landscape in the UK. You drive past them now, go past them on a train, and great bits of the countryside, like the southwest of Scotland, just covered in these hideous windmills. And you know, surely anyone who loves the land and the countryside can't improve of that endlessly. Why save? Why wreck the environment in order to save it? Allegedly.
Well, that's the incredible thing. People you would think would love the natural environment are the most enthusiastic about destroying it. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Great pleasure.